what inspired you to get into acting?
What matters is the story and how you craft it.
You've answered a lot of the questions already with that one answer, so that's fine.
It makes everything fun and splendid and fabulous, and you learn about dinosaurs and animatronics, and I mean, it's like Peter Jackson in a box course, and it's like it's the best training you can have if you want to be a blockbuster director. Film schools are set up to be, like nerdy film school documentary people who want to make documentaries about protesters at a wig convention or whatever.
Please subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on your favorite podcasting platform. Thank you. Hi, and welcome to Film Forums. Today I've got a very special guest with me, Nicole Russin-McFarland. Okay, so to kick things off, I couldn't help but notice in my research for this that you appear to have been treated very badly on at least a couple of occasions, with a film score basically stolen and repurposed by another composer, and countless rejections for entry-level positions in the industry.
Not only the film industry, the media industry. Because while I was getting very high-profile freelance work, nobody would hire me for a part-time and certainly not a full-time job.
How have you managed to come out of the other side to where you are now, through all of that?
Oh, because I just hired myself and I would publish my work, and if you were in charge of I guess yourself, nobody can prevent you from working. And it's a lot harder because you're worried about things like income. But in the future, I would love to set up something, and I don't know how at this point, but that's why I'm saying in the future, because when I'm able to set up some kind of program for people to teach them to be entrepreneurial, because there's so much discrimination, and it's not from a point of necessarily against women, Black people, queer people, etc. It's more like you don't look like the right kind of woman or Black person or queer person or even white man, because there's a lot of discrimination against people in the performing arts, or at least people who don't look the part. And if you don't believe me, or whoever is watching this and listening to it, scientists say that offices go by what you look like physically, and that's unfortunate. And it's not the case with film directors because, Steven Spielberg does not look like Guillermo del Toro, who does not look like me, right? And also the new people coming out and some of the women coming out. But in corporate world media and in many, I don't know about science, but in kind of what we think of as corporate jobs, that's what people do. It's very sad. And when you count in sexual harassment into the mix, then it makes it near impossible to get a job. So I think things like having an Etsy shop or eBay store, things like that, people might laugh at, but they're actually lifesavers for your wallet. And the other thing I want to say is that many people presume that somebody like a Gigi Hadid type or, Hollywood royalty and those types of people have everything. And in fact, their parents cut them off very young. And you'll find that lots of people are 16 years old working at sandwich shops or the mall and those kinds of places. And also that actors have had big breaks on television, on Broadway and that sort of thing, and they still need day job money. And in fact, I met waiters who were doing like Armani campaigns and ads in Manhattan who, these guys who are like tourists would be jaw dropped how good looking they are, and they would take me along to auditions. I would tell these people, like, they don't realize that you are the guy in the magazine. You say, you look like a guy in a magazine. No, they are. And it's there's so much poverty amongst people in the performing arts, and it's sad. And the reason it exists is because I know people with master's degrees who don't get work, and they're working, waiting jobs or Starbucks jobs. And everyone tells me that the most movie stars and television stars who are men come out of selling shoes. So that's an interesting thing.
If I may say so, it appears on the surface, at least, that you've had a pretty glamorous career to date. You've written for well-known publications like Variety, been involved in celebrity interviews, modeling, etc. Is any of it as glamorous as it kind of appears to be, or was it a bit of a reality check for you?
Most of the time spent is actually me arguing with people. That's one reason I haven't done a lot of exterior journalism. And I'm going to talk about Variety, but other publications. And there's one where last year I really wanted to actually approach different publications. And one where I felt that they were trying to steal my article and that the boss was going to try to redo it. So I shut it down by contacting his, I guess you would say the corporate president of his company. because I showed other people who I wanted to interview for the article, and I asked these gentlemen, do you think he's trying to steal my article? And they said, yeah, and go with your gut feeling, and he probably is. So people don't see lots of that, or me arguing with people. I went to do it was the Terminator article. Hey, I can talk about it since I'm not going to work there. Okay. It was the Terminator article, Terminator Dark Fate. And I thought that the guy wanted to steal my article. Now, whether he didn't, that would be nice, but everyone told me he did. And with that same article, when I was pitching it to a woman, and I approached different women who were not corporate bosses, but editorial bosses, I ran into things like really narrow-minded ideas of what feminist movies are. So I was trying to say that we could have Linda Hamilton, and she is a very iconic woman. In fact, she's leading a movie at an older age, and she's in shape, and she's saying, I'll be back, and whatever. It's beautiful, and it's amazing, and she's so strong. And I loved her when she was in the first Terminators. And I would love to do a big article about this. And she's this feminist icon in film. You always push for this. And then we were like, no, that's not a women's movie. And like, there's several women starring in it. And it is a strong action character. No, it's not a women's movie. I don't like those types of movies. Those movies are not good for women, et cetera, et cetera. When we look at the media arguments from the perspective of politics, we only see through that. But what people don't realize is that every publication tends to have an agenda they want to push based on the editor's beliefs. And it doesn't have to be political. It doesn't have to be correct. And very often it's wonderful because they're trying to talk about things like Black Lives Matter and equality and gay rights. That is when it is good. But then we run into things like narrow-minded people, like this woman I approached saying that Terminator is not a women's movie, even though it stars a bunch. Terminator Dark Fate specifically stars a bunch of women. For screen time, we see only women for much of the movie, and Linda Hamilton is an older woman leading and opening a film. And she refused to see it as a women's movie. And that's disturbing. But that's the thing that goes on very frequently with magazines. And people don't see this. People don't see me arguing with people. People don't see me with modeling that many people wanted me to do things that were not part of the job description of being a model. So I got punished by not being sent out to audition for things. And I had to go along with waiters or actors or people who worked at the mall, and then or people who are like, my brother knows this person and he's gonna audition. And because New York is filled with talent in bad jobs, and people think she just works at the mall, she's a nobody, and that girl could be like the girl who walked the campaign for the huge fashion week campaign, and she only had one gig and that was it. So lots of that, people don't see all that, and I feel sad that I had to for so much of my life argue, and I was never the person's first choice. So I always wanted to be somebody's first choice, and I hope that in filmmaking and film score composing, people see that I am that first choice, and I get to achieve my dream. And people don't get it because they, at least they don't in their heads up here, until I began explaining, well, I love James Cameron, I love Peter Jackson, I love Hans Zimmer. What if they were the same person? And they say, oh yeah, I get it. And then now it's the best elevator pitch in the world.
I read in another interview with you that you said, and I'll just quote you if that's okay, every day is me convincing the worst haters as to why I deserve to be successful. What do you mean by that exactly?
Because I consistently deal with people who are mean to me, and not the talent, as I mentioned, but people who are on the corporate side of things. And it doesn't matter if, and it applies from anything from modeling all the way up to now, it doesn't matter if, and I will use an example from modeling, if the most powerful people who used to be in power think you deserve to be there. I had a fashion designer helping me. I had because at one point I wanted to change agencies to like one of the big agencies where like it's one of the two places where you get everything. And I had him, and I also had a former executive from this company. I'm just going to say who it is. I had how I met him. He is an openly gay man, and I didn't know who he was, but I yelled at some people on his behalf because they were making fun of him for being gay. And yeah, that's the true America, unfortunately. I started a conversation and he agreed to help me.
Yeah.
And I don't know where he lived. I think he lived near me. But anyway, I've had so many examples. I've had people try to help me get work everywhere. I've had people who've been guests on network television shows try to help me get work. I've had like everything you can imagine. And they say it's not who you know, or not what you know, but who you know. That is false, because I think it's not who you know, but who you are willing to hook up with, unfortunately, is the case. And for the film world, it's not so much that it's like all these people are mean to you, and because they're and I'm just going to repeat what everyone tells me, which is because they're upset that the fact that their careers are stalled, they try to stomp on people, and it's, you know, it's a case of them being mean, and sometimes they tell you how to run your life or whatever, and you can't have an open conversation with them back and forth. That's very frequent. And you know, could be like sometimes someone who is no longer in it at all, like a hairdresser sought out to be a screenwriter and then gives you bad hair. I don't go to the hairdresser, thank goodness, anymore. Any hairdresser. But you know, like you run into that, like failed screenwriters who become hairdressers, failed actors who become publicists, failed this, everything starts with failed. And the reason it's failed is because they give up, and then they have the nerve to come and lecture you how to do it. If they knew what they were doing, they wouldn't be failed screenwriters. I'm sorry, not to sound like a jerk, but they are. And part of that's giving up to me. You need a day job and work money, but you know, don't give up. And so anyway, they're really mean, and I'm consistently dealing with these people. And it's not only me. If you look up Steven Spielberg's old interviews, he openly says, I mean, it's a well-known thing that he says if somebody else had his films, and he was supposed to direct some other films, and this was, people think he showed up in Hollywood and he was suddenly the king of Hollywood, and that's not how it worked. When he was younger with blockbusters, people didn't believe in him. And he talks, and then I want to say it's an old 60 Minutes interview, 60 Minutes Australia, I'm not sure, but he talks about if this movie came out and it had my name on it, I think it was Rain Man, then, and I was supposed to direct it, but I didn't, it wouldn't have had any Oscar nominations. And he talks about that for different things. And he talks about how people perceive him, and he's this new guy in town who's selling out because he wants people to see the films, and he's bringing big business to Hollywood, and kind of disappeared for a little, and it came back with him. Thank goodness he's a business leader, not just a great filmmaker. And I admire men like that, and I see that that's kind of maybe okay because their journeys match mine, that people are fighting against them. And you're trying to say like, oh, but I want to be a big business leader like Peter Jackson, Steven Spielberg, James Cameron, and on the music side, Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer reaches out to people who would never ordinarily know what a film score is. Most people only know him and John Williams. And what does that say? You know, that most people walk around in these bubbles that, and if you tell them anything, they're like, that's not true. And they would say like, well, look at this from the perspective of somebody who is not immersed in this universe, because you Google this stuff all the time. These people, the average person, when he goes on the internet, does he know who Hans Zimmer is? Yes. Does he know who this person is who composed a cute little indie score and everyone raves about it? No. And whose music matters most? It's like the thing about the tree falling in the forest. Doesn't matter if nobody saw the tree fall or heard the tree fall. It's just, that's what I deal with.
Well, that's very sad to hear, really. When I was listening to you talking then, I was thinking, what? It sounds like a schoolyard situation. Like, I can't believe people really think that in this day and age.
And I consistently deal also with people who get offended by everything.
So what is it about Peter Jackson's work from a director's point of view that you find inspiring and appeals to you?
I think he built a business around what he loved to do, and he did it without being from Los Angeles or New York and going there. And because I grew up seeing these success stories of people like Steven Spielberg, whom I adore, and I think he's spectacular, as does everybody else, for his Amblin, I guess you would say, business savvy, and what he's able to do with, you know, like people aren't aware that he owns stakes in Star Wars, for instance. Okay, things like that. But Peter Jackson did that without, while Steven Spielberg was a young fellow directing and Martin Scorsese was in there with his friends and they had this clique, Peter Jackson was not doing that. He didn't have a clique of director friends out in New Zealand, and he created something where now people come from Hollywood to film in New Zealand and they make blockbuster movies there. While I'm American, and I think that the Midwest and New York are very similar, when I deal with the rest of the country, I feel like a foreigner. And it's so strange because I don't see that sense of community that we have in the Midwest that you see in New York, which is after 9/11, all of Manhattan got together. People who were on every side of the political spectrum were holding hands by the river and that sort of thing. They don't have that in Hollywood or in many other parts of this country, but I see it in New Zealand, I see it in Ireland, I see it in Britain. And I like these places where they put more of a value on hanging out with people after work. And I saw that in New Zealand, they do that. So that's another thing I love about Peter Jackson. And also the other thing I love, which is very Midwestern in New York, that they have with the Kiwis, is that you don't have everyone there is kind of equal, and you don't have a sense of why me. So he approached a bunch of people with his girlfriend, and they wanted to make Lord of the Rings, and they were not, James Cameron with these huge blockbusters on their resumes. They just approached all these people. I want to make this movie, get all this money. And they had never done it before. They had made certainly good movies and interesting movies, and he'd been nominated for an Oscar, I think, for screenwriting with his girlfriend. I'm going to have to double check specifically, but not like these really, really blow to budget movies. And he got the money and he did it. And I love that about James Cameron too. A guy from Canada starts getting money and more money and more money, and he just asks for it because he can. And I want to have that kind of spirit. And that's kind of why, going back to what I said about the article being canceled on me, and I didn't get to do it, but I got to kind of cover a little bit of my website in more detail, and his special effects guys, and the composer Bob Fidel, and all that. I actually, in the movie I'm making that I hope is out in 2021, The Homework's Revenge, Esther in Wonderland, we start by inserting me, the cartoon version of me, into Terminator 2 with the cigar biker, and I get to play a really hilarious, at least I think it's hilarious, stereotype of me, because I show up in a Hello Kitty sweater and kawaii heels with lipstick lips all over them, because instead of Arnold, I'm like this kawaii satire viewpoint. And I make fun of the whole movie of whatever people think of me, and I say everything people think of me, and because I think self-awareness is the best thing you can have. I don't want to be like those people in the bubble who say like, everyone worships me, everyone worships this person. You're like, nobody knows who you are.
I'm afraid I can only finance filmmakers who have been to Alice's Wonderland.
My mind rewrote the music to Peer Gynt.
Off with her head!
I'm late. What did I miss? Tales of the Mad Hatter's Kiss?
One must be a Cheshire cat to grin.
Why don't you want to get married to be like James Cameron?
I shall marry you to the most handsome 13-year-old troll boy in all of Troll World, the Mountain King's son.
It seems to me that the style that you've arrived at in relation to animation is irreverent, unique, and quirky. Are you looking to push the boundaries and deliberately subvert the conventional standards of the slick, largely American animations that most of us are used to?
Yeah. And also I get to be a cartoon version of me, and also that Ryan McGregor, who plays both the Mad Hatter and also the person the Mad Hatter is in my existence, who uses fake British posh rapper who appears on TRL on MTV. It's ridiculous. He talks about being discovered out of Oxford by Dr. Dre and all this stuff. It's very silly. But anyway, we're both the cartoon people in it, and then everyone else is, looking different ways, but I mix different styles in there. And also I want to prove to people that I can animate myself. And specifically, I have a story. When I was hearing about Steven Spielberg and Peter Jackson making a motion capture animation with The Adventures of Tintin, and it hadn't come out yet. And I wanted to write a story that I said at the time I was in Manhattan, I don't know when, and I had really bad health problems, and I was at one point temporarily blind from diabetes. So I had it like on and off in my life. And I went to the hospital with low blood pressure, and it was not cool. So I was really sad and depressed. And I wanted to write the movie that will become the movie that I make when I fly to New Zealand at some point, and have all done with Weta Digital and all that stuff. And I said, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I need to write this movie. And while my mind is fresh and whatever, I have nothing to do. I work like once in a while at the local newspaper in New York, the New York Daily News, and my life sucks and I'm blind. What can I do? And I couldn't really see it that well, but I had this, I had like this, and I was writing like that, and with my tech, and I wrote The Big Bad Wolf Strikes It Rich, and I named the character Aladdin Todd Jackson, and this was in 2011. So it goes to show you, it takes time, but I think people needed to be doing that. And it goes back to this, because that's the ultimate, at least one of my first goals, to kick me into like the big leaguers of the film industry. So for me to do that with this particular movie, the most similar thing you could do to motion capture is actually what I'm doing, which is inserting myself into this movie along with Ryan. And it's not, it's not the same, but at least it's going to show people, and what people don't realize is I actually can book time in New Zealand. That's not the point. I need the money to book the time, and you need the many, many millions of dollars from investors. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to prove to people that I'm worthy of being invested in, because I'm able to do this on a smaller scale, and therefore I can handle a motion capture animation. And that's like, yeah. And for people who don't know what it is, I mean, you can explain, or I can explain that. It's like when you stick people and you capture their natural movements and facial expressions into the cartoon. So, and I actually did that in my movie, and it's pretty funny. I like seeing myself making really weird faces. Like, the only thing is I I admit to eliminating some under eye circles in the part where I become the Terminator.
That's the benefit of having creative control. Yeah, it reminds me of A Scanner Darkly from about 16 years ago. I think it was Keanu Reeves.
It's the same concept. And I know the term they used in the original. And the same process was used in the animated Lord of the Rings.
I've not actually seen that. What is it, if you excuse the pun, that draws you to animation? Is it the creative freedom that the medium provides?
Well, what we say in the movie, and it's my first feature that people are going to see, is that animation is what makes people know the real you. So it's very nice to start with these little, and we make fun of feminist films because, or when I say feminist films, I'm not saying like, because I think woke is a good thing. I'm saying it woke like in quotation marks, and woke and feminist, and that sort of sarcasm, self-sarcasm, because many of those are the way, or cute little indie films about people at a coffee shop. I say that's a line the Cheshire Cat says in the movie. He's telling me what to make with films, and because we see that as the entry into the next thing, and then directing whatever, but there's no individuality. And actually, if you read what filmmakers always say, is they say do something that's true to you, and we talk about Peer Gynt, to thyself be true, which I love. Peer Gynt, it was never on my homework assignments for my music class, but it's kind of the basis for this story because I had a weird dream with it, with the music. And I love the message of Peer Gynt, that you should be yourself. And if anyone knows anything about Steven Spielberg, what his advice is always, and then I think people bother him a lot, but his advice to young people is always make the movie that only you can make. And nobody follows his advice. It's like, why do these young people are always bothering him for advice? They get the advice and they don't follow it. What is wrong with these young people? You're like, what? You want to slap them, make the movie you can make. And so they did this, and I think what is hopefully the most personal animated film people have seen in many decades at any budget. I can promise you that. I can't promise you like it. I can't promise you anything other than those two things. You will probably like the music, unless you're a really mean ogre guy who works in the corporate world, and maybe you might not like it because it's a friend of mine, actually several business world people and some politicians in Britain and America and everywhere. I've asked them, like, what do you think of film scores? Well, I watched one and it sounds like the trash truck. And then somebody else said, it sounds like a toilet flushing and somebody trying to declog it in a horror movie. And it's disgusting. And they're like, why is this person working? Well, that's not music. And it was like, because somebody said it was music. It's Emperor's New Clothes. But anyway, I can promise you will like the music, unless you're one of those people who likes toilet clogging sounds. And hopefully people who watch it think it's the movie only I can make.
Can you tell us what your very short film, The Mystery Dating App, is about, and what inspired its creation? Is it a comment, I wonder, on the intense superficiality and dismissive swipe culture of the likes of Tinder, etc.?
Yes, it is. Because I all my life, and I'm a very nice person, but I have this like little mean redhead chick streak to me. And I get together with people and we make fun of how stupid people are. And people don't mind in Britain and New York, but when the rest of America, they're like, oh, she's saying that. She's so, and it's like, move on, have a sense of humor. F you. And anyway, I hate how many, and this is a discussion in itself, like America not being the same. Okay, so in the Midwest, in New York, you kind of get to know someone, and you like a guy or a girl, and you know someone, you see the person around at work, you see someone in line buying food all the time, and you talk and you go out, and then you can hook up. And you kind of know you've seen that person coming from work, and you kind of get little details like today she's a little dressy or he's a little dressy, and you figure it out, and and in the rest of America, I get so mad because I'm standing somewhere, I'm minding my own business, and then there's like some 900-year-old man or even a woman who is, I'm standing somewhere, it's like, hey, do you want to go out? I will buy you anything you want. And it's like these old witchy people, or even a business owner, and they're like a man with a cane and he's about to fall on the floor. Like, how do these people know I'm not going to murder them? How does these people know anything about me? They don't know anything. They don't even like me. They don't know anything. Old ladies, old men, they don't know me. And also, when it's not them, it's married women who want to come on to me, including actually, I don't think she was married at the time. Super, 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 super famous Oscar nominee / winner lady. Can't say who it is. Maybe when she's dead, I'll say. She wasn't creepy, but she was definitely with a man, and she was trying to come on to me and try to use me. And I'm like, no, this is what I'm attracting in America. It's gone mad. And now it's spreading to Britain. And let's have a movie about people in Britain who hate this garbage. And we want to have it where people meet because they're actually into each other, and it's like a satirical thing. And then culturally, my friends in Ireland and everywhere say that you don't just approach someone, you go to a bar, a pub, or whatever. You just don't in the street approach a girl because that's weird, and you don't know if she can kill you.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I think there was like a pickup artist movement about 15 years ago or so, and hopefully that's still not so prevalent now, but it's a case of being organized and picking up women, which is quite disturbing, certainly the level they got to.
But what's really funny, which I've done to people, is at least I think it's funny. Sorry if it offends people. When these like really pervy guys are giving me the eye at the restaurant and being creepy or giving me their number, I try to be weird. And I do, like, I licked my lips back and whatever pervs do. And I also I tell them inappropriate things like and whatever they say. And I just change it around based on former pervs, and they get so creeped out they leave me alone. It's really funny. And I give people the eye, and like I like one time I was at a really nice restaurant, this old man was being creepy and he asked me out, and I just started like licking a fork seductively, and he's like, oh my, and he laughs. And I just do things like that. Treat them with the taste of their own medicine because they don't go away. So the girl in my movie, the short, Samantha, the actress who plays the person, talks about like this total, she makes it up like I do, and she's mean, and she does stuff that I actually do. Like the line about she hooks up with everyone at work last night and regularly, and yeah, very playful. So it's kind of based on that. I mean, when I have to be mean and I'm not mean otherwise.
What do you wish you'd known when you first embarked on a career in filmmaking?
I wish I had studied a lot more, and I didn't know what to study. So I would try to learn how to animate and then erase it or throw it in the trash because I didn't like it. They told me about, like, you can study at Stan Winston School. People keep telling me about this. It's going to be like those classes I see in infomercials. This is going to suck. Stan Winston School special effects, they're going to be terrible. I'm not going to learn anything. How do you learn in the mail? And I actually take those classes, and we go through makeup and every special effects thing, and all the people, including, like, I've interviewed one of them, and he worked for James Cameron, and he you can take his class virtually through the Stan Winston School. I feel like I'm the best advertisement for free the Stan Winston School gets for this reason, is that you actually learn what people do on blockbuster films, including Lord of the Rings, which I love, and all these films, from hair, makeup to wigs to everything. I took the wig class. It was really good. I'm in makeup classes, and I teach you, like, punching hair is going to be one that I take. And then they teach you about, like, basics to Maya, basics to this program, and if you want to do this. And it's so neat. And yet I wrote it off until I tried it. So I'd say it's probably in that respect a lot like peanut butter, in that some people write off peanut butter and then they try it and they love it. And I love peanut butter. The peanut butter of special effects classes. Yeah. And that's different people, like, from different levels. So with the Schmielberg person thing situation, people who work from, like, all the way to, like, low ends of his movies all the way up to, like I said, a gentleman who had a work produced by him all recommended this to me. And finally I was like, okay, I'll give in. People keep telling me about it, and I did. And I think it's a really good setup because most film schools are set up like, I hated school. And it wasn't any school. It was just the setup. Like, you get judged and the grades and whatever. You don't get grades. You don't have to turn in the work if you don't want to. You do things at your own pace, and you can just practice on your own until you mess up, and it's fun, and it takes away the structure. It makes everything fun and splendid and fabulous, and you learn about dinosaurs and animatronics, and I mean, it's like Peter Jackson in a box course, and it's like it's the best training you can have if you want to be a blockbuster director. Film schools are set up to be, like nerdy film school documentary people who want to make documentaries about protesters at a wig convention or whatever. If you want to make blockbusters like Lord of the Rings, you take Stan Winston School classes, and that's what I'm doing. And this takes a very long time. Some classes are like 6 hours long. What was the one class? It was an intro to 3D sculpting class. It broken up into different portions, and each one was like 4 hours long. And I was doing that a few months ago. It's brilliant and amazing. Can't say enough good things about it. So I didn't have any sense of guidance or direction when I first started, and that kind of helped put it in better perspective. And also, people recommended books to me, and one book is James Cameron's Story of Science Fiction, which I always knew like the movies in it, but it's a source, like the ultimate source of what you want to know, and it's almost like you need guidance, which I didn't have. And also a shout out, I assume it's going to be a good book. Christopher Nolan has a book coming out, and I don't know the name of it, but it's going to be a coffee table book about everything that he thinks and science fiction and dreams and all this stuff. And he's one of the people I, by coincidence, shout out in my movie, my cartoon, because my movie's about people getting ideas from dreams. And also the train rides and people visiting Wonderland and all this stuff. And that's why we talk about Walt Disney, although he's only known as Walt in my movie for copyright reasons. I don't want people to be mad with me. I think his family would be okay with it, though. I just don't know them, but just in case, he's Walt. And we also have James Cameron, like a little thing, like a bunch of stuff devoted to him. And we have little snippets of me talking about Christopher Nolan and then the Wonderland animals, like, has Chris been by? And it's just cute and silly, and I hope people like it.
Okay, Nicole Russin-McFarland, I'd like to thank you very, very much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been eye-opening.
Please subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on your favourite podcasting platform. Thank you.